Yeah, the clerk will distribute the amendment to all members. The clerk will designate the amendment.
An amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to fiscal year 2025 Budget Reconciliation Committee print providing for reconciliation pursuant to House Concurrent Resolution 14 is offered by Mr. Lynch of Massachusetts.
Without objection, the amendment is considered as read. I reserve a point of order. The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes to explain his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Turner for defending federal workers and his own employees as they would be affected adversely by this legislation. Every member, their employees will also be affected in a similar way. Every federal employee in their districts will be affected, will be harmed by this bill. In the interest of the federal workforce that remains free of partisan influence and political cronyism, my amendment would strike the section of the bill that seeks to force new federal workers to surrender their due process rights and their employee protections and accept a new job classification as, quote, at will employees, subject to termination for any reason. Now, as a former union president and as a labor attorney and an employment attorney, I just want to make sure people understand what at will means. An at will employee can be fired for any reason or for no reason. So here's the president. He's trying to force everybody. Now, obviously, he would like to have partisans on his side brought into government. The sad fact is that all those people can be fired for no reason, for any reason. So it'll create this massive turnover if people are even willing to come on to the federal payroll without the benefits that they're going to get and with the changes that are being made here today. The bill before us presents incoming federal employees with the Hobson's choice. You can elect to give away all your rights, all your basic job protections that prevent you from being arbitrarily fired, and have your retirement contribution rate go up by an additional 5% of your pay. That's on top of the 4.4% that's already coming out of your paycheck. So it approximates 10% of your pay if you want your rights. If you want to have rights as an employee, you need to pay all this additional money. And that's for the duration of your employment. Alternatively, you can agree to waive your employee rights. You're basically, first of all, every federal employee has to give up their right to strike. So even if you wanted to stop work, you can't do that as a federal employee. Statutorily, federal employees are prohibited from engaging in strike. So if you thought your job was unsafe, you got to keep working. You can grieve, well, unless you do this, unless you give up all your rights. Then you need to shut up and keep working for less. And your employer can just fire you for no reason. For any reason that comes into their head, you're gone. Considering that entry-level federal workers earn an annual starting salary as low as $30,000, the majority of new employees will essentially be forced to relinquish their constitutional and statutory job protections just to keep more income in their pockets for their families. Mr. Chairman, the primary response of this provision, the primary purpose of this provision appears to be to advance the implementation of Schedule F, President Trump's government-wide plan to strip federal workers of their civil service protections, arbitrarily fire them, and replace them with political loyalists. This shameless attempt to politicize our federal workforce is already the subject of multiple legal challenges brought by a coalition of federal employee unions and pro-democracy advocates, with the strong support of the Democratic House Litigation Working Group, which I'm a member of. The statute governing the federal workforce, the Bipartisan Civil Service Reform Act of 1978, enshrined the merit system protection that federal employees should be protected against arbitrary action, personal favoritism, and coercion for partisan political purposes. Schedule F and the at-will provisions included in this bill fly in the face of that purpose. This provision is also an additional attack on federal workforce that out of duty already sacrifices critical rights enjoyed by their private sector counterparts. Every new federal employee swears an oath to serve the American people and carry out their public service now knowing that they are expressly prohibited by statute from participating in any strike or work stoppages or asserting the right to strike, and even belonging to a union that asserts the right to strike against the federal government. A violation is a felony and punishable by imprisonment. In closing, Mr. Chairman, I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support my amendment to strike this egregious provision from the bill and preserve the dignity and the independence and respect that we all should have for our federal employees. Mr. Chairman, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back, and I recognize myself for a brief statement in opposition to the amendment. I do appreciate the length of the amendment, just 2 words and a number. I appreciate that. I sincerely do. I didn't have to spend a lot of time reading that. But I oppose the Lynch Amendment, number 1, which would significantly reduce deficit reduction in the committee's legislation by over $4.5 billion and result in the underlying print conflicting with our reconciliation instructions and comprising the legislative privileges. For that reason, I strongly oppose the Lynch Amendment. Do any other members wish to speak on Lynch Amendment number 1? Ms. Stansberry from New Mexico, you're recognized.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would love to just ask...
Reset the clock, please. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would love to just ask a few questions about the amendment. So, again, zooming out a little bit, there's a lot to not like about this portion of the reconciliation package. As we said, I think it's an all-out attack on the federal workforce, and it kind of cuts at the heart of some of the major reasons why people stay in federal service, because it is not only them serving and doing their duty for the American people, but also you are making sure that you have a good retirement, you're taking care of your family. And also, we want to make sure, especially, one of the things that I think is really important for the American people to understand is that after Richard Nixon resigned, there were major overhauls done to the federal service because of the corruption and the ways in which Nixon, bless you, used the federal workforce and service to carry out his own personal political vendetta. There were major reforms in the 1970s to the federal workforce rules and laws because we wanted to protect federal workers from being used as political agents of whoever was in power. And so the idea of trying to convert federal workers to at will undoes all of the good government reforms that were put into place in the 1970s after Nixon to protect the federal workforce. Is that correct, Mr. Lynch?
That is absolutely correct, yeah.
And so it's really important to understand that that's why those protections are there. And the whole point of trying to convert people to at will is, again, to make it easier to make the federal workforce your political arm. And we don't want that. We're not an autocracy. We are a democracy. And we want to make sure that our federal employees are protected from the whatever whims of whoever's serving in power. So I do want to ask, though, Mr. Chairman, you said you oppose this amendment because of its impacts to the budget. Can you explain to me how does not allowing federal workers to be forced into an at-will situation affect the federal budget?
We have budget instructions. We're following through with the budget instructions. We've been very transparent about what this committee was going to do within our jurisdiction of budget reconciliation. This is our bill, and it's self-explanatory.
No, but I don't understand how. So Mr. Lynch's amendment is to strike section 90,004, which is the provision about at-will work. How does that affect the budget?
The employees who choose to not be at will have to pay higher contribution rates.
Say that again, please.
The employees who choose not to be at will have to pay higher contribution rates.
And how much money are you saying this will generate for the federal government? Or savings?
The Congressional Budget Office says $4.5 billion.
Over what period of time?
I was- A decade,
A decade.
10 years.
Okay. So the idea here is that you.
But let me interrupt you. We're trying to
No, Mr. Chairman. I
make
understand
savings
that-
here, and you all you do is criticize.
The gentlelady's
You
time.
act
This
like
is
there's
actually-
no,
The gentlelady's
you act
time.
like there's
I'm
no
asking you a
fiscal
question.
crisis
Mr.
here.
Chairman, it's the gentlelady's time.
I'm just asking the question about the monetary offset of at-will employees. So the idea is here that you're going to generate a few $1 billion over
A few $1 billion.
10
Mr.
years.
Chairman,
$1
is it
billion
million or
here,
billion?
$2 billion
Is it
there.
million or
Over
billion?
10 years, by taking away federal benefits and making the federal workforce fireable, undoing all of the good government reforms after Richard Nixon's corruption. I think that we just need to be, I just want to clarify, that's what you're saying. Cool. Okay. I think we got it. Thanks. I yield back.
Any other members seek recognition on the Lynch amendment?
Mr. Bell and Ms. Crockett.
Mr. Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The problem with this bill is that it doesn't offer federal employees a real choice. It forces them into a lose-lose situation, which weakens the very protections that ensure fairness and due process. This package is literally a betrayal of the middle class. And as I said before, I think our litmus test is, do our proposals support working families or not? In Missouri alone, these proposals threaten the rights, health care, and financial security of thousands of federal workers. And let's be clear, in my district, Missouri's first district, over 186,000 people rely on Medicaid. And under Republican budget plans, their health care is at risk. And so again, we need to stand with working class families, and these proposals are an attack on working class families. It's pretty straightforward. I would yield my time back to Rep. Stanberry or to the ranking member.
I thank the gentleman. Again, the gentleman is on point with first of all, the impact of this on federal employees and the costs that this will incur in terms of performance at the federal level. Right now, we are in competition with the private sector, but through loyalty, through patriotism, in the case of the VA, you know, about a third of our workers at the VA are veterans themselves. When I go through the Brockton VA in my district, which I do often, I ask them, were you in the military? More often than not, the answer is yes, and then they proudly tell me what branch of the service they were in and when they served, and they also express the spirit, the esprit de corps, the patriotism, and the obligation that they feel towards wounded veterans. All of that is wrapped up in being a federal employee at the VA and some of the other departments and agencies where federal employees work each and every day. So what we're doing is so the President has proposed that we're going to go back to, I think it's 1979 in terms of the number of people working at the VA. So he wants to cut 80,000 people from the VA. Now, because of the high number of veterans we have at the VA, out of that 80,000 people he wants to cut, that's what his budget resolution anticipates, 27,000 of the people that he's firing at the VA are veterans themselves. So all of this bill here today is just in furtherance of that same mission. And again, I appreciate the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Turner, standing up for his workers at the VA. I just hope every member here is willing to do that. I understand the goal of savings and of balancing the budget, but this is not the way you do it. You don't go after people at the VA. You know, we had the Inspector General for the VA do a whole survey of every single, so there are like 86 major medical centers, the VA medical centers across the country. And we asked him, give us a report card on how we're doing with our veterans. He came back and he said two things. He said, number one, 80% of the hospitals that I've visited need a medical director. You need to hire a medical director. He said 86% of the hospitals that I visited, you need more nurses. They are the backbone of our healthcare system. So what did Mr. Trump do? First day in office, announced 2,400 cuts, 2,400 people laid off at the VA, and 80,000 more to come. So our veterans are waiting longer for appointments. There are fewer people caring for them, and this bill is in furtherance of that same mission. So we used to agree on stuff on veterans. We don't anymore, and I miss the support that we used to have, bipartisanship for our veterans. And Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Any other members seek recognition on Lynch Amendment Number 1? Ms. Crockett from Texas.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. You know, walking in today, I didn't really know how I felt or what I would do, because as people ask me about how I can get so passionate in this committee about certain topics, I recently had an opportunity to talk to a group of people in Las Vegas, actually last weekend, and there was a woman who was almost in tears as she told me about the number of family members that have been fired from the federal government. And she said, Rep. Crockett, you give us so much hope, and I don't understand how people are so callous towards federal workers. And I explained to her, I can't really understand the callousness either, but I can tell you that my passion lies in the fact that my mother has given almost 40 years to the federal government. In March, it would be 40 years that my mom has worked for Department of Defense. She's worked for Navy. She's worked at Walter Reed. She's worked for the IRS. She has worked for AFRICOM. She has worked for the post office. And doing that hard, honest work, as we consistently attack federal workers, we call them lazy, we call them dumb, we try to pretend as if they are not taking care of the very people that elected us. But my mom graduated from college at Washington University at the age of 19 after receiving a full ride, and she decided that what she would do is dedicate her life to this country. And I wish that we would find an ounce of courage that my mom and so many other federal workers have, and just decide that we are going to dedicate ourselves to service and not just say that we are public servants, but actually do the work of being public servants. So let me tell you that this amendment is not going to do anything that y'all claim is going to do. You claim that this is about money, when honestly, as far as I can tell, this is only an admission that what has been done under this administration has been unlawful the entire time. This is only an avenue to make sure that when and if another rogue tyrant decides that they want to enter the White House, they can go and get rid of as many people as they want to, and they will not have any recourse in the courts. The fact that you had to put this in here tells me that y'all absolutely know that these firings of these workers has been unlawful, and honestly, it has been simply inconvenient for so many of you. But I can tell you that the only people that are going to hurt are the people that you're servicing. Even if you can tell me that the CBO tells us that there may be, they can tell me it's $50 billion or however many billions of dollars over a number of years. What the CBO is not telling us is how many people are not going to get their Social Security. How many people may die because they don't get the services that they need at the VA. How many people are not going to get their SNAP benefits because there's not going to be anybody there. As we have had hearing after hearing about people complaining about the post office and not receiving their mail, which so many of our seniors rely on their checks to come through the mail to make sure that they can keep a roof over their head. That's the part of the story that the CBO numbers are not going to tell. And the last time that I checked, no matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican, you've got somebody in your district that is relying on these services. This is about hurting people. This is about getting rid of people that are too inconvenient for an administration that doesn't want to keep our food safe at the FDA as they are firing people. This is about an administration that doesn't want to have any oversight or anybody reporting back and telling you that our food is unsafe, telling you about the diseases that are coming through, and basically talking about the overall incompetence. If you don't have anybody that's at work, then yes, you don't have to worry about whether or not people who say are trying to go and get an education, whether or not they're going to actually be able to fill out their FAFSA and get that funding that they need. So, at the end of the day, if you can't really explain to me how this is going to help your constituents, I don't understand why we are talking about it. Because again, we weren't elected by Donald Trump or J.D. Vance or Elon Musk. We were elected by the people of our districts, and those are the only people that